Discussing the 21st century skill called effective communication. You notice that it didn't just say communication, it said effective communication. So they're sneaking something in there on us. In this context, what does the word effective mean? Anybody have an idea? Any thoughts? Anybody? What does effective communication? Yes. That's partly true, yes. It's what is within the communication, yes.
Motivation.
Say again?
Motivation.
Motivation, yes. But the most essential aspect of effective communication is being able to somehow get the thoughts from our head into the head of another individual that we're communicating with as close as possible that their understanding is the same as ours. Okay? So effective communication is being able to articulate, to speak or to write in any manner of communication vehicles that allows someone to share in our thoughts so that we can understand each other and have a common outcome if we're working together. So that's what I would call effective communication. Now, effective communication can be any one of multiple methods of communicating. It can be oral communication, which is words. It can be written communication, writing, whether it's on paper, newspaper, typing on a screen that you'll share with someone. Nonverbal communication, also very important. Does anybody know what nonverbal communication might be? Yes. Body language, very good, excellent. Body language, facial expressions, the way you sit, the way you hold your hands and arms, they often tell as much as the words do. So when we are communicating with someone, we must be very aware of what message we are trying to send. Aren't we? What message are we trying to send? Because it's not just the words, it's the tone of voice, body language, right? All these communicate to others. Oftentimes there is confusion when our words say one thing, but our body language looks like it's saying another. Here's where we can get confusion. Here's where we can get confusion. Now, the variety and forms of diverse social, cultural, and linguistic contexts. So it's not just the words, it's the context, the situation in which we find ourselves, speaking to someone, right? And so it's not just what we're saying, it is also the setting that we are in that also begins to tell part of the story. So all of these things, the context of the communication, what does it, what are we talking about? That's the context. The words that we're using, the body language, the environment, whether it's in school or at a playground, all of these elements contribute to communicating an idea from ourselves to someone else in a way that they understand. Does that make sense? So when you're talking with someone, you need to be aware. You need to be aware, not only of what you're saying, but how you're standing, how you're, the environment that you're in. Let's say that you're talking with someone and you're like this. Okay? That immediately sends a message, doesn't it? I'm closed off. I don't really want to hear something different. You know, this is the closed off posture. If we're sitting with arms loose or we're gesturing openly and freely, this says something else. This says that I'm open to discussion. I'm open to new ideas. It's amazing what body language can tell us if we observe it. It truly is amazing. Now, speaking is one half of the communication cycle. What's the other half? What's the other half of communicating? Yes?
Listening.
Say again?
Listening.
Listening. This boy's on a roll. Good job. Listening. Listening. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen more than we speak. I'm sure you've heard that one before. So, listening. Even though we are listening, how do we know that we have effectively understood what the other individual is saying? We think we do, right? We think we understand, but there's no guarantee. How often have you spoken to someone and you thought you were perfectly clear? No fancy words, clear context, content, straightforward, nothing hidden. And then 5 minutes later, the individual that you were talking with has a completely different idea of what you were saying than what you felt you were speaking. So, interpretation is another aspect of speaking to someone. It's what they're going to interpret from our words, which may not be what we're sending. So is there a way, is there a tool that we can use in communicating that will help us minimize misunderstanding? And yes, there is. If you're speaking with someone and you're not sure if they truly got what you were saying, ask them, can you say back to me what I just said? It's called active listening. Active listening. Important tool, write it down. Active listening is when someone tells you back what you said. It's only then can you be reasonably sure that message was transmitted, message received and understood. Otherwise, you're guessing. You're making an assumption that this person understood what you were saying. So if you prompt them and say, can you tell me what I just said? And if they give you a one-to-one relationship, what you said to what they heard, all well and good. But oftentimes you will find that it's never 100% understood. It's never 100% understood. And you have an opportunity to adjust it then. If you don't do this feedback, then the miscommunication will keep going on. And if they tell someone else and they don't get feedback, then it goes further from what you said. And for every link in that chain of communication, if there was no verification of message received and understood,
Lord knows what 3 people down the line are going to hear. It could be something that's completely different than what you intended. So if something is important, it's important enough to verify that the communication was not just received, but understood. Yeah? Now, we use communication for a variety of purposes and functions. And we use several forms of communication, media, technologies, and we should know their effectiveness. We have newspapers, we have magazines, we have television, we have movies, so many different types of media input given the technologies that we have available to us today. Now, here's the one caveat there. Caveat means possible exception. There's the one exception. Media, in particular the news. Usually the people on the news have a bias, either a liberal or a conservative bias. So they will tell the truth, sort of, but they will slant it toward their particular bias. So you must always be aware of this when listening to commentators, to news people, is that they have their own agenda. The best way to control a population is through the media. You can shape public opinion, can't you? Through the media. And oftentimes that's terribly distorted. Because they have an agenda, a bias, they will intentionally go out to deceive or to twist the truth to fit their agenda. Never, ever take these people for speaking the truth. If you're going to assume anything, assuming that at best it is biased. At worst, it's an out-and-out lie. And you can't go too far wrong. If you're not sure, take what you heard and do your own research. Look up things for yourself. Don't just take things at face value. You know, be sure what you're hearing is as correct and truthful as is possible under the circumstances. So that's your responsibility also, to verify that what somebody is saying is as accurate as can be done given the circumstances and the mechanism or media of communication. Be it a newspaper, be it a TV show, be it World News Tonight or whatever. Always assume that they're trying to shape public opinion by turning and twisting the truth into something they can manipulate. It is a kind of a scary thing, because who can you trust out there? I don't mean to be a pessimist, but unless I verify for myself, I don't trust anyone. I don't distrust them either. I would hold any judgment in abeyance. That means hold off judging until I do my own unbiased research. Only then can you get closer to the truth. And they may be spot on. They may have reported things very truthfully. But you don't know unless you check. You know, often we're just too lazy to check. And therefore our opinions get skewed, get twisted. According to the bias of the people doing the speaking. So what we wind up with is twisted and skewed information, and if we act on it to a degree, we may be acting incorrectly because we accepted information that has been distorted. So please, please be careful. If somebody starts spouting some political position, this or that, know this, that they got that position more than likely from the media, more than likely from other people who listen to the media, and they took it as gospel without taking the time to verify how close to the actual truth these words are. What it comes down to is simply being lazy and just accepting because it's easy. Unfortunately, we've seen humanity get in all kinds of trouble because of this. Look at people like Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, Muammar Gaddafi. They brainwashed their people. Look in current times, look at Putin, throwing all kinds of lies out at his people. And his people, like sheep, are just walking to the slaughter. It's tragic. It's tragic. Please don't fall into that trap. Now, we're going to just run through a few of what we could call effective communication skills. So we talked about effective communication. Are there elements to effective communication? Well, the first one I see on the back of my page is active listening, isn't it? The circle in the upper left. Yeah. Written communication, nonverbal communication, presentation skills, like PowerPoint or, presenting from a paper. Patient education. That would be doctor, patient, educating them on maybe their medical condition. That's pretty important. Ask lots of questions. Ask lots of questions. Compassion. That when we speak, we should always have in mind that words have an impact. Words can be far more impactful than the sword. As they say, the pen is mightier than the sword because it can have such far-reaching effects. Far-reaching. And your words can either heal or hurt. Be careful in the words you use to others. Think before you speak. Run your statement or what you're going to tell someone through the filter of your emotions, through your heart. Would you like this said to you? So you must engage your heart as well as your intellect when you are going to speak to someone. How will they feel when I say this? Will this help them or harm them? It's important that you know this because the universe doesn't care what you meant. Not at all. All it knows is the outcome. You may not have intended to hurt someone through your words, but if in fact you did, that's the only thing that the universe cares about. You generated harm instead of help. Sooner or later, that's going to return. You can call it karma, you can call it the third law of thermodynamics, equal and opposite reaction, or as you sow, so shall you reap. All those little pointers saying, be careful, because what you send out, you will receive back. And it's not just the words themselves. Listen up. It's the intent. It's the intent. The intent is what gives words power. That's what gives words power, is the intent. Because the force of your personality, the force of your being, if you will, is injected along with the words and how they affect people or the outer world. So you may not even realize sometimes that your intent is not to help, but to cause harm. You may not even admit that to yourself. But all you have to do is look into someone's eyes when you're speaking. That'll tell you the story. You can tell when someone's hurt. It's not that difficult, is it? So please be careful in not only what you communicate, but how you communicate, as well as what your intent of that communication is. Is it to inform? Is it to help? Is it to try and share knowledge? Or is it something darker? Think about these things. So, cultural awareness. Cultural awareness means that depending upon your culture, you're going to have different style of speaking, different words and phrases, different context.
Sir,
Yes.
what is the meaning of intent?
What is the meaning of
Intent.
intent? Thank you for asking. What is the meaning of intent? Intent means what is the purpose? That's its purpose. What is the purpose that you're going to be speaking this? That's your intent. It's the why. Why are you saying? Anyone else have a question on that? Is that clear? Okay, how are we doing time-wise? Okay, so I got some time. All right, so you're clear on what intent is? Okay, good. It's the purpose. Personal connections. Do you have any relationship, friendship, relative, brother, sister? You're going to talk to them somewhat differently than you are your classmates. But again, it doesn't matter what the relationship is, because typically when we use words, no matter what our intent or purpose for saying it, it's going to have an impact on the other person, regardless of the relationship. So be careful that just because a person is your friend, or a brother, or a sister, or mom or dad, they're human beings. They have the same fears and needs and sensitivities that everyone else has. So be kind in your communication. Trust. Trust. It's a biggie. If you trust someone, chances are you will tend to take what the person is saying as truth if you trust them. You know, why would somebody you trusted or cared for tell you something that was untrue? They may do so, but not intentionally. So even though you may trust this person, they may have gotten information that was skewed by watching a TV or newscaster. So it's not a matter of you trusting or not trusting them. It's a matter of how accurate is their information. Where did they get it? What are their opinions? So again, analyze. Critical thinking. Analyze. Look it up if you're not sure. Like you just said, what is intent? Well, if you didn't get a satisfactory answer, you could always go to your computer somewhere and type in a Google search, what is intent? Whoop, up it comes. So never be afraid to do your own research. Do your own fact checking. Because once you do it for yourself, more than likely, you will get the correct perspective. All the communication can possibly do is send you in the right direction of a particular subject. You have to verify whether that subject matter is right or not. Does all this stuff seem to make sense? It tries to keep you from getting confused and sent down the wrong path. If the communication has been skewed either intentionally, skewed means shifted off the center line of truth. It's been done either intentionally or just unintentionally. It doesn't matter whether it's intentional or unintentional. It's not correct. It's up to you to find out what is correct. Otherwise, your compass is going to keep pointing further and further and further because you never bothered checking the first couple. Then your understanding, instead of being correct for this situation or information, it's going to be thrown off center. So always check. Always use compassion when you speak. So, trust, verbal communication we talked about. And we talked about the various aspects of verbal communication, which is body language, facial expressions, all these things communicate with others. So, any questions on any of the material on these couple of pages? Look down and make sure that you understand what all those words mean. If you don't understand one, it's up to you to raise your hand and I can get you back on the center line. Yes?
Compassion.
Compassion. Compassion is where, compassion is just another name for love. Okay? Compassion, and I don't mean romantic love, I mean just an innate human caring, where that we begin to feel what the other person feels, and we want to help them through that situation for no other reason, for no return, no recognition, no nothing, because it's the right thing to do. It is expressing human love to another for no reason, and it's the right thing to do. Does that help? Yes.
Patient and division.
Say again?
Patient and division.
That one I covered. It's a kind of a weird thing. If we think of what's a patient is someone who goes to a doctor. And let's say that they have an illness. It's up to the doctor to communicate with the patient what it is that is wrong, truthfully, in as compassionate way as possible, so that the patient understands what is going on. But at the same time, the doctor trying to minimize the fear, the hurt, that can go along with a diagnosis. We all know that, if somebody all of a sudden mentions the C word, cancer, everybody freaks out. Now, sometimes this is necessary, but it can be done in a compassionate way. So, the doctor informs the patient of what is going on and trying to minimize the trauma of it, and what are the treatment options to give the patient hope. Okay, that's compassionate communication. And in a physician, that's critically important. Okay? Yes?
Verbal communication.
Say again?
Verbal communication.
Well,
Verbal communication.
I'm not here.
Verbal communication.
What communication?
Verbal.
I'm not catching the first word. Hold on. Verbal. Speaking. Verbal is speaking. Speaking communication. 99% of the time, our communication with others is done through speaking. That is called verbal. Nonverbal, body language, facial expressions, written communication, writing, drawing pictures, whatever. Those are three different forms of communication we typically use. So verbal, speaking, and the better your vocabulary, the more clearly will you get your ideas across. So study words. Does that answer your question? Yes.
What is meant by linguistics?
Say again?
What is meant by linguistics?
Linguistics. Linguistics has to do with languages. Language. So, let me see the context here. You can probably get it better.
I have underlined.
That's all right. Linguistic context. Okay. Linguistic context is a manner of speaking. A manner of speaking. Linguistics is another word for language. That actually the root word for linguistics is language. So the linguistic context is the situation or circumstance in which we are speaking to another. And regardless of language, whether it's Hindi, Marathi, English, Japanese, Chinese, the linguistic context. If I say something to you and we're in Japan, I'm going to use a slightly different form of communication because of the context, the linguistic context, the place that we are at. Because it's going to shift because of the culture, right? Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? I guess that was a big one for everybody. I had to think about it for a moment myself. You don't hear those two words together very often. Linguistic context. Okay, so, CK, would you like to do the summary?
Skills. Your ability to communicate well with others will account for fully 85% of your success in your business and in your life. Brian Tracy. Success in life and business depends on many factors. One of the major factors that will contribute to your ability to succeed is your ability to communicate effectively. By being an effective communicator, you can influence your future in many ways and set yourself up on a path to personal and professional success. Many people believe communication is about how you speak, but effective communication is much more than that. Communication is also about listening and paying attention to both verbal and nonverbal cues. It is about clearly conveying your message while also understanding others' perspectives. How you communicate, like any other skill, can be honed and practiced, putting you in a position to achieve more from life. With that in mind, here are 5 ways to improve your communication skills. Understand and organize your thoughts. One of the best ways to become a better communicator is to understand and organize your thoughts before you share them. This will give your message the best chance of being received in the way that you want it received by the person you're communicating with. By taking the time to understand and organize your thoughts, you'll be able to filter your message and remove any excess information that is not necessary. This will clarify the important aspects of your message and present your communication more effectively to the listener, with less chance of being misunderstood or causing miscommunication. Do your research. Communication is not a one-way street. It often involves a back and forth between at least 2 parties. Because these parties may be coming from different perspectives, it is important to anticipate that the person receiving the communication may have questions. These questions may arise because they need further clarification on certain aspects of your message, or they may require more information to make informed decisions. You should already have answers to the possible common questions or concerns, and have a plan in place to clarify any potential common communication challenges. By doing research ahead of time, you can have these answers ready to back up your points, or fill in any information gaps, which will make your communication more effective. Be clear and concise, because there are many forms of communication, and often multiple people communicating. They can sometimes get confusing. Body language, tone, and word choice are all factors that influence how each of the parties involved in the communication interprets the message and what meaning they take from it. That's why when trying to be a better communicator, it's important to strive to be as clear and concise as possible. Get to your point quickly and efficiently without being rude or short, while using the right tone and word choice. Rephrase and repeat. It can often be helpful to rephrase and repeat what you're saying in a different way. This form of repetition can help people understand what you're saying in a way that sticks. By rephrasing and repeating your point, you'll help solidify your message in their memory while making sure the message is understood. Listen carefully. Communication is not just about talking. In fact, a large part of effective communication is listening and paying attention. And more than just listening, it is active listening. You need to slow down and avoid thinking of what you're going to say next. Instead, you have to really listen and hear what people are saying from their point of view. After listening carefully, paraphrase what they have said and repeat it back to them, showing them that you understood their point of view and what they have communicated. Once you have shown them that you have listened to what they have said, then you can address each of their points, making them feel heard. By doing this, you will make them more receptive to hearing you out, leading to more effective communication. As you can see, mastering communication is the key part of being able to achieve personal and professional success. Like any other success skill, you can improve your ability to communicate effectively with practice. By following the steps discussed, you'll be able to convey your ideas to your audience in a clear, concise manner and inspire people to take action on your messages and recommendations. Now the question today is this: what steps will you take today to improve your communication skills? Leave a comment below, and Brian will be sure to follow up with you. Thanks for watching, and remember,